Welcome to Climbing Together, the small business experience. I'm Beth Houtrow, founder of Climb the Small Business Book Club, and every episode I talk to a small business owner about a mistake that they've made and what they learned from the experience. Mistakes are inevitable, perfection's impossible, so let's embrace the mistake. And today we're so excited to welcome Sarah Connole to the podcast. Sarah, tell us a little bit about you and your business.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So my company is called Trouvaille Creative, and just a little bit about the name because I get a lot of questions about it. Trouvaille is a French word that means something lovely discovered by chance. So I've been a huge Francophile my whole life since I took my first French class in sixth grade, and I really wanted to kind of pull that part, that part of my life that's important to me into the name. So we are a boutique marketing firm headquartered in Kansas City, and we specialize in marketing strategy and then all of the parts and pieces that you might need to fulfill that strategy, whether it's graphic design, paid media, email campaigns, whatever a business needs to kind of reach their customers in a new and better way. That's what we do here at Trouvaille.
Very cool. Love it. All right, so we're here to talk about mistakes. So tell me about a mistake that you had as you were getting your business going or recently. Yeah.
Well, as you know, there was a long list, but one that really stands out to me that was like a huge learning process for me is back in 2020, like just as the pandemic was starting to kick off, I had lost a giant client that we were like seconds away from signing the contract, and because it was an event related project, all the events were called off. I lost this client. And so I was really nervous about finding more work and sort of open to whatever came my way. Like there was that, I think early on in business, you kind of feel that desperation of like, I'll take whatever comes in. Like I needed money coming in. And so I got presented with an opportunity, and, I had a couple conversations with the business owner, and I should have known early on that it probably wasn't going to be a good fit and it wasn't going to go well. Just I should have gut checked a little better. But anyways, I started working with this client, and he didn't even want to do a 3-month agreement. He was like, well, we'll give you a trial run for a month. And 2 weeks into it, he fired me over an email that I wrote for them that hadn't even been sent out, but he did not give me any opportunity to even explain why I had taken that approach. He didn't question, like he just was, it went from like, hey, we need to talk about this email to like a couple hours later, like, we don't need your services anymore. We're ending the relationship. And, but he took it a step further and basically like bullied me over email and told me how he didn't understand how my clients would pay me to do this kind of work for them. And so just really kind of started taking shots at like my character, my, expertise, all of these things. And it just, the whole thing just didn't end well. And so needless to say, I learned a lot after working with him about kind of gut checking the client, and also coming up with I came up with like a red flag checklist that
Nice.
Actually has come in really handy for vetting like other clients, so that I could avoid getting into the same situation and making that same mistake again.
Yeah. Are you comfortable saying like what was it that kind of made you think maybe this person isn't going to be great to work with? Was it just how he treated you in the calls? Was he dismissive or?
I'll tell you, the first thing that I should have keyed in on was he was asking me about my background and my experience. And he was like, do you have a degree in marketing? And I don't. I have a business administration degree, but I've been doing marketing for 13 years. So I had all this experience, and I really had to justify my experience to him.
Mm-hmm.
And his comment back to me was, oh, well, our current marketing person has a marketing degree from K-State. And I'm like,
okay,
well, can't change that at this point. So I should have known right up front when he started questioning my credentials and like my 13 years of on the job experience and being apprenticed in marketing wasn't enough for him. Like that should have kind of been my
Yeah,
first cue. But
fair. Okay. Well,
yeah.
great that you created that checklist. And I think it's such an important thing for all people who, especially in the service industry, right? You don't usually worry who you sell to and products, but you're going to
Hmm.
have to spend a lot of time engaging with someone. You need to be able to work with them just like you work with an employee. And when people treat you badly, it can
Yes.
just be so draining and yeah, take away from what you can give to other clients because you're
Yes.
managing this other awful client. So well, maybe it's a win though that he just was like, we're done, right? That you didn't have to deal with that person going
Yeah.
forward. Yeah. So
Yeah. No, I'm sure it would have been a lot of justifying my decisions and my existence to him.
yeah. Yes, not something you need. And so, yeah,
Nope.
sometimes I'm not a big the universe kind of person, but sometimes the universe things work out. And
Yeah.
so glad that you got to shed that person and continue with the rest of your clients. So nice.
Yes.
All right.
Exactly.
So if you had like one piece of advice that you want to give to other entrepreneurs, what would you tell them?
I would say for other entrepreneurs, it's really important from early on to set boundaries for yourself and for the way that you're going to work with your clients. When I started my company, I was like, I'm not working 60-hour weeks.
Mhm.
I'm not available at 8 p.m. Like
Yes.
I kind of set those personal boundaries, knowing that the whole reason I wanted to work for myself was to have the flexibility and not be tied to a desk, not be tied to my phone constantly. And so 5 years into it, I still set those boundaries. I'm a little more flexible with them at times, but I also communicate those expectations to clients up front. So
Mhm.
when we sign on a new client, we send like a welcome kit. And one of the things we talk about in the welcome kit is what you can expect from us as far as response times, that we typically work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And that's when you can expect to hear from us, just because, I mean, we're kind of in that age now where people do work odd hours, like I'll get emails from a client at 10 o'clock at night, but I have no obligation to answer those. And I've already communicated to them that don't expect to hear from me just because you're working at 10 o'clock at night. So I think, you know, setting the boundaries for myself, but then also making sure clients understand some of those boundaries. I mean, and there's others too, but that's kind of has always been the biggest one for me, is just how I manage the time expectations.
Yeah, it is so important. I have a number of clients who are like, "Oh, well, I get texts at like 8 or 9 at night and blah blah blah." I was like, "Are those emergencies?" And they're like, "No." I'm like, "Okay, well, then just ignore them or stop giving people your phone number for texting, whatever it looks like." Because there's not a lot of consulting small business jobs where you're like the person's going to explode
Right.
if you don't answer them right away, right? You're not a doctor, you're not an EMT, right? You can wait until the next day to answer these things. But it is important to let people know in advance that that's how you're handling things, and that
Yeah.
you won't be answering. And my guess is that person writing an email at 9 or 10 at night doesn't actually expect you to answer it. That's just when they're knocking it out, right? And getting it
Right.
sent over. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But I love that. The boundaries are so, so important. Even the beginning,
Yeah.
people think if you're brand new that you have to do whatever the client wants to make them
Right.
happy, but that's just establishing that work pattern and it's pretty hard to break. So love
Hmm.
that. Nice.
Exactly.
All right, cool. Well, so this podcast is brought to us by Climb the Small Business Book Club, and our two tenants are continual learning and community. And so I know that you have a book that you recommend that's so perfect for this podcast. So tell me about the book that really meant something to you.
Yeah. And so I do read a lot of books, but the one that I always kind of come back to as I think the most influential to me is a book called um, Permission to Screw Up. And the author is Kristen Hadid. And basically, she, as a college student, tried to start a cleaning company and, I mean, failed in every single way. And the book explains all the things that she did wrong, but then how she took a step back and sort of like righted the ship. And I mean, went on to have an incredibly successful company. So I think a lot of times we don't admit what we did wrong, right? Like we want to talk about our successes and how great and like I did all these wonderful things, but I loved that she was so vulnerable about just coming out and saying like, here's all the things that I screwed up, but also here's how I fixed it and here's how you could avoid doing it in your own business.
Yeah. Well, I have so many conversations. I teach a lot of very new business owners or exploring the idea of being a business owner. And this conversation of like, if you aren't ready to embrace the idea of screwing up, you can't do this, right? This is guaranteed. You're going to screw up and you're going to be embarrassed and things are going to go bad. It just is going to happen. And you have to ignore social media where people are telling you, I made $300,000 in 2 months and whatever that. I was like, none of that's true. Or maybe it's some bizarre, crazy fluke. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or they had a whole bunch of money to start and they spent a boatload of money on ads and that's how they got that much revenue so quickly. But in the end, they actually lost money anyhow. So I love that book, and we need to do that more, especially for new entrepreneurs in this kind of post-COVID era of, I don't want to go back to work kind of thing. People need to know the reality, though, of what it is to be an entrepreneur, and that what you see out in the general media world isn't particularly accurate to what the actual experience is to get started. So our last question is, talk to me about how you built community. How have you met other entrepreneurs who can support you and kind of help you understand the journey?
Yeah. So fortunately, Kansas City has like an amazing entrepreneurial community. There's a lot of startups here. There's a lot of small business owners. And so there's a lot of networking opportunities. I've taken a couple of classes. Like as I was getting started in business, I didn't really know how to run my business. I took classes. And so I'm in this group with 20 other like-minded individuals who are also starting businesses. And fortunately, I've made some relationships that have lasted, past those classes. But I think I do a lot of networking. I've been involved with some groups specific to women in business, and it's just been such a welcoming community here, and there's just a lot of support for entrepreneurship. So I've been really lucky to meet some good people and like form some really great relationships with other business owners.
Nice. And it's something we talk a lot about on the podcast is so many people don't realize how much support's out there, especially those people who are kind of not brick and mortar, starting their business at home, right? And they just I'm just going to figure it out from YouTube. And that's one way to do it, but a much faster, more effective way is to find those organizations. And so I love that Kansas City has so much support for small business owners in so many communities. So to all the small business owners in Kansas City, there's no reason to do it alone. None whatsoever.
Definitely not.
Go find some people to work with. Great. Yeah. Well, Sarah, that's our podcast today. Thanks so much for joining me.
Yes, thanks for having me. This was great.
This podcast is brought to you by Climb the Small Business Book Club, where entrepreneurs go to learn, discuss, apply, and grow. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe at Apple, Spotify, or Google Podcasts, or follow us on Instagram at Climb Book Club. And always remember, mistakes are inevitable, perfection's impossible. So let's embrace the mistake.